going to lead off with that Tornadus and Kartana, and Trista is Kartana. So Kartana leads here, Tapu Koko on Trista's end, Kartana leads here, Tapu Koko on Trista's end.
So this is a pretty exciting lead. Both players opting not to go with their restricted Pokemon, but there's a lot going on here. Kartana's coming out as the lead, make a lot of sense because it does counter. Kartana's coming out as the lead, make a lot of sense because it does counter. There's tailwind pressure all around. Tornadus can pressure. There's tailwind pressure all around. Tornadus can tailwind. Very fast tailwind, but both of these Pokemon with very strong electric type attack. So wouldn't be too surprised to see some tailwind control right from the start. Wouldn't be too surprised to see some tailwind control right from the start. Tapu Koko here definitely in a position where it just kind of wants to get big attacks off immediately.
Yeah, you've seen as well that the Tapu Koko speed control like Electro Web and things like that. So control like Electro Web. We are going to see Frederico switch out like Kartana. Bring in Incineroar to get the Intimidate. Bring in Incineroar to get the Intimidate Kartana on Intimidate side of the field. On the side of the field. Tailwind from Tornadus here. Tailwind from Tornadus here on Frederico's side of the field. So want to get that set up very quickly with that Electro Web coming out. With that Electro Web coming out from the Tapu Koko. Tornadus on the speed on Tornadus stage. Stage waiting in the wing. Waiting in the wing. It's just going to match the tailwind. It's just going to match the tailwind. So quite a passive turn. Quite just setting up board. Just setting up board.
Yeah, definitely. I think tailwind is something that both players prioritize in this matchup because their teams relatively similar. You know, you have a lot of Pokemon the same Pokemon as well. A lot of the same fall behind in tailwind. That could fall behind in tailwind. That could be a major disadvantage here. But I think that Tapu Koko, the Electro Web, that's a great move to have. That's a great move to have because slow down the speeds as well. So slow down the speeds as well. So not only is actually fast tailwind, now she's actually fast. Incineroar here will at least put on a little bit, especially getting that Intimidate off, against Kartana. Sacred Tapu won't be doing as much either. And Tornadus, really can't do much here other than maybe go for a Hurricane. So you don't want to risk.
Later in the match, we're going to see Tapu Koko. We're going to see Tapu Koko for a ball switch the side of the field into that Kartana, switch out Kartana, switch out and board position, and potentially get something like Kyogre. Take advantage of that speed control. Set up the previous turn. But it is not Kyogre. It is Xerneas. So. It is bringing that Fairy Aura to the field, and Sacred Sword into Incineroar, but because of that Intimidate, it's not doing too much. It's just pivoting out with U-turn. So both players really just adjust to get.
Stuff out of it now. This next one's going to be really big. I'm curious to see how Xerneas is. You see a Leaf Blade coming out immediately.
Big damage and a small strike from Frederico's side of the field into that Xerneas. Decent damage taking it down to about 40% damage. And going for that Geomancy here. I'm quite surprised that she went for that. Commonly Kartana can do carry knockoff. Risky results for that Geomancy. Really does kind of speed but Trista taking the risk there, and it is probably going to pay off, getting that special attack, special defense, and Frederico matching that as well, and Geomancy as well. So both Xerneas is powering up here, and
we got a lot of important information that we saw Trista Xerneas did go first, so it could potentially still be a speed tie. I think the knockoff point is a really great point, but Frederico just opting for the damage instead. And now the Xerneas, even though it is boosted, will still feint to another Smart Strike or Moonblast. And so Xerneas right now can target one of the two. We also saw a Leaf Blade come up from Trista's Kartana, which makes me think maybe it doesn't have Smart Strike, and it shouldn't be getting a knockout on either of these two Pokemon with the Sacred Sword or a Leaf Blade. So I think Federico actually potentially in a more favorable position because he's got that first initial damage output against the Xerneas, and the Kartana is at -1, and so it's a pretty tricky position, yeah, and I think we're just going to see both players kind of opt for a better board positioning. The Xerneas really needs to be protected right now on Trista's end, because if it doesn't, I think Trista will just lose the game.
Trista going for a protected Xerneas detect with Kartana. Just wanted to scout out what Federico's doing from his side of the field. As Xerneas goes for a Dazzling Gleam, and Kartana following up with a Sacred Sword into detect on Kartana's side of the field. So the Tailwind does expire on both sides of the field now. So speeds are still the same from the previous turn, but no Tailwind now. But as you said, Trista feels like she's in the worst of positions now. That Xerneas is in KO range. It will be able to potentially get an attack off, but like you say, if it is a speed tie with Federico's Xerneas, then it's going to be tricky to get a move off and utilize those Geomancy boosts that she went for 2 turns previous.
Yeah, and we do see just the Moonblast come out, so outspeeding twice now makes me think, yeah, it's probably faster, and it is going to cleanly knock out the Kartana, but if Trista doesn't have the Smart Strike here on the Kartana, I think we'll just see it. The Xerneas will survive, and Dazzling Gleam, oh my god, does so much damage.
Yeah, the Dazzling Gleam from Federico's Xerneas picking up the knockout on Trista's Xerneas, and a Tailwind coming up from the Kartana, getting the speed advantage back on Trista's side of the field. But the big thing here is that she's just lost her Xerneas, her kind of big way to power through Federico's side of the field, and Federico now coincidentally still has his Xerneas boosted up, so he's in a really nice position, although the speed advantage is not as favorable on his side of the field. He is, as we see, just going to bring that Tornadus, which does have access to Tailwind, and with that Prankster ability is going to be able to guarantee that it is able to get that off before it gets attacked.
Yeah, I think that was probably the best play Trista could have made. At least now she has a turn where she's faster because of the Tailwind, and one thing that can actually turn the tides maybe back into her favor is a Psych Up from Lunala. We see that a lot with the Lunala Xerneas course. I wouldn't be surprised to see Lunala maybe just go for a Psych Up. I think Federico here has a bunch of options. I mean, if he's really worried about like a Leaf Blade and maybe Psyshock in his Xerneas, he could protect Xerneas and Tailwind with a Tornadus, or he could just go straight for an attack if he's fearing the Psych Up potential.
We are going to see Trista switch out that Kartana for the Tapu Koko here, which will bring the Electric Train back to the field. And you know, I wonder, oh, and there it is. There is the Electric Seed. I was about to say it, but the game beat me to it. So Electric Seed activating on that Lunala. We are going to see a taunt from the Tornadus onto the Lunala, potentially stopping a Tailwind or a Psych Up, like Aaron mentioned, and a Dazzling Gleam coming out from the Xerneas doing big damage, but taking Tapu Koko down to 50% health, which kind of indicates one item on it, I would say, more than anything else, because you would expect it to do a lot more against Tapu Koko, kind of indicating that it might be an Assault Vest on that Tapu Koko. And with that Shadow Shield ability that reduces damage at full health from Lunala, and not taking as much damage, but does shut it down and really puts the stoppers on Trista being able to kind of take advantage of that tech that she's got on the Lunala.
That was a phenomenal turn there by Federico, and that actually should effectively seal up this game at this point. So Trista, I think, had a bunch of options there. She opted for the one that Federico called perfectly, so it worked out entirely in his favor. We're going to see the Tailwind set up now. And Volt Switch actually doesn't even get the knockdown Tornadus, and it has a berry! So, you know, sometimes we'll see Focus Sash on Tornaduses instead of the berry, but this Tornadus opting for a bulkier build. Coco will go back, but the thing is this Lunala just doesn't put enough damage now, and the Tailwind is matched, and so that last turn, really the key turn to really decide this game. Trista had the option of potentially stay in, maybe go for like a Leaf Blade and a Psyshock on his Xerneas, but, you know, maybe Federico was like, oh, I'll survive a double up there, so it's a pretty safe play from my end. We'll see how much the Psyshock does, though.
Psyshock not doing too much damage. That is a bulky Xerneas. It's going to return with a Dazzling Gleam. Going to pick up the knockout on Kartana and do a nice chunk of damage to the Lunala as well. Yeah, like you say, I think Federico just putting himself in that really good position earlier in the game with that taunt onto the Lunala to potentially stop a number of things that the Lunala could do. We're going to see the Tapu Koko come back onto the field for Trista, but not looking great now from her, because Federico able to get that Tailwind up, matching the Tailwind from Trista's side of the field, kind of evening up the score, and Xerneas is going to be the fastest thing on the field, able to just Dazzling Gleam here and pick up the knockout.
Wonderfully played there, I think, by Federico. It seemed like the lead was not favorable for him, but the Incineroar was able to pivot itself in so well. And I think one of the key turns in this game was when Federico didn't go for a Fake Out or a Flare Blitz with the Incineroar. He actually swapped right out and put himself in a perfect position, Kartana next to Xerneas. And there was a lot of important information in this game as well. I think the fact that Trista's Kartana never went for a Smart Strike onto Federico's Xerneas, that could be a really, really big deal. We saw that Federico did have that Smart Strike, and that damage is so key because a Smart Strike, and then we saw the Dazzling Gleam KO even after the both Geomancies on both ends. And so that's a really, really key calculation. Even though Trista's Xerneas is faster, she took more damage. And no surprise to see that, you know, this game, it ultimately kind of came down to Xerneas versus Xerneas.
Yeah. If you were Trista going into this match, Aaron, I mean, what would your game plan be here? We've seen the psych up on Lunala with the Electric Seed. And, you know, would you be going down more that route, or would you be looking at trying ways around stopping that Tornado, shutting down maybe your Xerneas setup, or stopping the Tailwind, trying to get advantage on Trista's side of the field? Because I feel like everything that Trista tried to do in that match, Federico kind of just matched it and then
did it better.
Shut it down. Yeah,
exactly. I think Incineroar is a Pokemon Trista might want to consider bringing. It's so key in a matchup like this where you can fake out and potentially just get some disruption, and intimidates, of course, because that reduces Smart Strike's damage by so much. And that could be the difference, right? Because after the intimidate, then maybe the Moonblast won't even knock out from Federico's end. I think the other thing that's going to be really interesting here is maybe Federico considers bringing the Kyogre, because, you know, Trista didn't bring the Ludicolo last time around. And if you don't bring Ludicolo, it's so much harder to deal with this Kyogre. And so that's always something that's really hard. You know, losing game one, even though you called it correctly that they wouldn't bring Kyogre. Now what if they bring Kyogre in the second game? So that could be an adjustment Federico can make, because even though the first game worked out really, really well, potentially he maybe wants to make the call, okay, Trista's not going to bring Ludicolo this time again because she needs to deal with the team that I brought around the first time around more. So curious to see how that stacks up, but I think Incineroar would be a nice adjustment on Trista's end to potentially slow things down. And you mentioned the Lunala, which I think is a really great point as well. She needs to be able to position itself a little bit better because it was just useless that last game.
Yeah, it didn't really do much at all. We are going to see the Tapu Koko and Kartana come out from Trista again, and a Smeagol Xerneas come out from Federico. So he is changing things up here, and we are going to see Smeagol for the first time this tournament.
Yeah, and you know, it's actually kind of cool to see on this Kyogre team specifically, because we actually normally don't see Smeargle too often, but Smeargle is just such a good partner with Xerneas, even after losing Dark Void. I mean, it can still just go for so much support. This first turn immediately can threaten a Fake Out onto either Pokemon. I could go for a potential Follow Me as well, and we saw that this Tapu Koko is a pretty bulky one, so with the Assault Vest, you know, actually really can't do any damage against the Xerneas. Maybe can slow things down with the Electro Web, but Smeargle's Fake Out here. Maybe you just Fake Out Kartana and go for a Geomancy. This seems like Xerneas should be able to get set up relatively free this game.
Yeah, and you've got to wonder now if Trista has brought that Incineroar, because it feels like a good time to kind of bring it in to try and utilize maybe its Fake Out the next turn, to, if it's got Roll, maybe to use as a tech against that Xerneas does go for the setup, because it feels so free for Federico just to Fake Out and Geomancy this turn.
Exactly. And there it is, as you mentioned.
Here we go. So, like you mentioned earlier, Trista has brought the Incineroar, bringing it in. It is going to get the Intimidate onto both of these Pokemon. Not so pivotal in this kind of situation, with Xerneas being more of a special type attacker. We're going to see their Fake Out into that Incineroar, which was the Kartana, and an Electro Web from Tapu Koko. I'm going to try and reduce the speeds there a little bit on both sides of the field on Federico Pokemon, and I would imagine we'll probably see a Geomancy come out from the Xerneas. It is going to get that boost and activate the Power Herb along with it, which this move normally a 2-turn move, but with that Power Herb, it does allow you to just get those boosts in one turn, making it so strong, and you are getting a +2 boost in special attack, special defense, and speed. And even though the Electro Web is coming in quite handy now, Xerneas still is going to outspeed both Pokemon on Trista's side of the field. But with that Incineroar coming in, Aaron, Trista has the option now to go for another Fake Out and Electro Web again to reduce that speed boost from the Xerneas.
Yeah, Incineroar, I mean, it's bulky, it can potentially roar the Xerneas, but the main thing is you still got to deal with this Smeargle out next to this Xerneas, and you know, even if Incineroar has Roar, Smeargle can still redirect things potentially with this Follow Me, and I think we saw the special defense increase earlier from the Moody, which could be really, really big, because it means that a Thunderbolt might not knock out Smeargle, and then the Roar would get redirected. I mean, this Dazzling Gleam is still doing so much damage, but a Sky Drop comes out.
Wow, Sky Drop from the Tapu Koko. Gonna pick the Smeargle up into the air, and a Roar coming out from Incineroar. The beauty about the Sky Drop is it allows your partner in Pokemon to ignore that Follow Me, because it's taken out of the equation, allowing Incineroar to get that roll, get rid of the Xerneas with those boosts, and putting Trista really back into a really nice position now.
Yeah, that's a really, really clever way to kind of get around the follow me, and it works out perfectly. The thing is, though, I think Trista opted to not bring one of her restricted Pokemon. She must have Xerneas in the back, you would imagine, and so she's got this Koko, she's got the Incineroar. Both of them will get knocked out from an attack from Kartana at this point. Most Incineroars don't carry Protect, and so you can maybe just launch a Sacred Sword into Incineroar. This next turn is going to be big. You know, maybe Trista wants to switch the Incineroar out into Xerneas, but then that's potential risk to a Smart Strike or knockoff if Federico wants to make that call. Smeargle can't really do too much, mainly because Electric Turn is up, so you can't really put things to sleep and it's not attacking. So Kartana's attack here is going to be really essential. You can get a free Leaf Blade into Koko, but then the Incineroar could just launch a Flare Blitz into Kartana. So what Kartana does here, I think, is going to be really, really big. We do see the switch out on Incineroar's end, and there's the Xerneas.
And it's coming in. It's going to be, like you said, pivotal what Federico does with this Kartana here. Seeing that Fairy Aura activate from the Xerneas. Tapu Koko going to Sky Drop that Smeargle, and is it enough to pick? It's not enough to pick up the knockout, but Sacred Sword coming into that Xerneas slot. So nice switch there from Trista, and a transform from Smeargle on Federico's side of the field, transforming into Kartana.
Yeah, Kartana's a really great Pokemon in this matchup, so why not have two, you know? A transform, a really, really cool move there, and Smeargle was literally not going to do anything else that turn, so that was pretty much the best move to have in that scenario. Still kind of a tricky position, though. I think, you know, this time it's Trista with the advantage, where she's been able to get the Xerneas out into potential to Geomancy, and the Koko here, maybe you just protect Xerneas and go for an Electro Web. I think it's really risky because of the knockoff that you mentioned earlier, to just potentially get knocked off. So I think Trista's safe play here is to protect and go for the Electro Web, and it looks like she's opting for that.
Yeah, as we see Federico switch in the Tornadoes for that Kartana, which was Smeargle. The Electric Web coming out from Trista's side of the field. Again, going to reduce the speed on both sides of the field for Federico on that Tornadoes and the Kartana. Just quite pivotal for her to utilize the Xerneas now, because we are seeing a knockoff into that Protect from the Xerneas. And that's pretty big. That Electric Web is pretty huge there for Trista, but then with the switch in for Federico with the Tornadoes, it's got that Prankster ability that gives it that priority, and we've already seen it has access to Taunt, which is going to be able to shut down that Xerneas from Geomancy, which is really what Trista's main kind of goal is going to be in this match going forward.
It's a great switch in there and prevents the free Geomancy. I think if the Geomancy on Trista's end goes off now, Trista probably just wins the game. So despite Federico losing the Xerneas earlier, still maintaining a position where he can definitely pull this off. And I think Trista kind of forced the switch out here, but that's a nice switch because not only do you bypass the taunt, you also get the Intimidate on the Kartana. Each Intimidate matters so much in this matchup, and this Tapu Koko can just threaten with more damage. We actually don't see a taunt. Federico making the call just to go for a Tailwind. Slightly risky, but he was probably expecting the Xerneas to switch out, because who would just stay in? And it actually hangs on from the Volt Switch. That's so huge because that prevents potential other taunt.
Yeah, it's such a big survival there on the Tornadoes and Federico's side of the field. We're going to see Tapu Koko switch out now. You've got to imagine that the Xerneas is going to come back in, and Trista just playing around the field now. She's got a nice position if it is going to be the Xerneas coming in with the Incineroar, with that fake out to stop the potential taunt the next turn and try and set that Geomancy up. But the thing is that the Kartana now is lying in wait. We have to wait to see what the Kartana is going to do from Federico's side. Has he predicted that the Xerneas is going to come in there, or is he sick? Yeah, and there's a small strike, but it's into the Incineroar. So not going to be a super effective damage. The Incineroar going to be able to take that pretty well, and just to set up a nice position for her going into this next turn.
Yeah, that was such a big call, though, going for the Tailwind instead of just taunting outright. But I think Federico probably has the advantage there because, you know, if you're Trista, if you just get taunted, then that's just so bad, and the game is probably instantly over. And so Trista making the safer call, and Federico kind of capitalizes off that. Tailwind's a really big deal now because Incineroar can fake out one of these two Pokemon, but the other can just prevent Xerneas from setting up either with a taunt or a knockoff that we've seen. So Federico has been able to really put on so much pressure against Xerneas, and it's forcing Trista to switch out as she's doing. But I do think that Trista should be switching out here because her goal was to basically knock out one of these two Pokemon right now, because they're the only two Pokemon that can stop the Xerneas.
Yeah, once one of those goes down, then it feels like the game really opens up for her. We're going to see a fake out from the Incineroar. We're going to stop that Kartana going for an attack this turn.
Ooh, Blind Hurricane hitting.
And it is enough to pick up the knockout on Incineroar going down on Trista's side of the field. So it is risky going for that Hurricane without the rain. You know, 85% accurate. It can miss, but paying off here for Federico and getting rid of that Incineroar, which is putting on so much pressure onto the Kartana and really pressuring it with those fire type attacks that will be able to knock it out. And you know, it's the one support option that Trista really had there for the Xerneas. And it means, while you were saying with the Tornadoes and the Kartana out on the field, it felt like that with the Incineroar, you've got a way to try and get around at least one of them, especially with the speed control that you're kind of utilizing with the Tapu Koko as well. But now with that Incineroar going down, it feels really difficult for Trista to get this Geomancy going, and Federico just playing it so well.
Absolutely. It's remarkably impressive how he's managed to contain the Xerneas with the combination of Tornadus and Kartana. That switch out from Smeargle after transforming was so pivotal. So, yeah, Trista's definitely not out of it, but it's going to be tough if she doesn't get the Xerneas set up because there's just so much damage output that can come out. We do see the taunt go off successfully, so there's no good Geomancy. I think Trista might just have to start opting for Moonblasts because she needs to get some damage, and Coco survives! Oh! Wow. Oh! A double miss from Electroweb, which I don't think I've ever seen.
Wow, I've never seen that so ever. 95 accurate move, and I've never seen it miss before. It can miss, obviously, and really punishing there for Trista, and really unfortunate as Dazzling Gleam comes out from the Xerneas on Trista's side of the field, not opting for that Geomancer just because of the threats that are in front of her. And Dazzling Gleam not enough to pick up the knockout there on the Tornadoes.
So there's such unfortunate misses, those. I mean, like, both of those are so important to hit, and missing both, I mean, the odds of that are really rare. So it's pretty much as unfortunate as it gets. I think Trista made the correct play. I think Federico going for a pretty safe play too. Maybe thinking Leaf Blade would knock out the Tapu Koko. The Tapu Koko surviving was impressive, showing its bulk, but the double miss here means that Federico basically gets an extra turn here with both of his Pokemon. But Trista still not out of it, especially because his Kartana is still at full health and can kind of maybe sweep through.
So they're going to see a knockoff from Federico's Kartana into Trista's.
Oh, Hurricane, and it does hit!
Doing good damage, but we haven't seen yet, and just the Dazzling Gleam coming back, which will pick up the knockout onto the Tornadoes and get that Kartana just below about 40% damage.
So the Tailwind finally peters out, and Trista, what she does have going for her is this speed advantage, right? She has Electroweb this Kartana a fair amount of times, and Xerneas, while it can't Geomancy, can still at least put in some work, and Smeargle's quite low as well, so Trista's not out of this by any means, despite the fact with the Electroweb miss. You know, the early Roar put her in a position where, while Federico was maintaining the Xerneas and containing it quite well, he wasn't really getting too much damage off on the board, and so Smeargle here, once again, can't really do too much damage, can go potentially for a fake out, but the Kartana is really threatened on Federico's end because it's so slow and it's been intimidated at this point. But Smart Strike here against the Xerneas. It'll be close on whether it can knock out or not. I don't suspect it to, but Smeargle here at least gets a turn to potentially fake out, which you imagine is going to want to go for.
Yeah, whether Trista wants to adjust, maybe get her Kartana out, get Tapu Koko in to have a faster option again against the Federico's side of the field, because you've got to feel like he might want to adjust here, because that Kartana on his side of the field, although it is putting pressure on the Xerneas, as you say, it has been Electroweb, it is going to be slower, so it's not in the best of positions. We are going to see a fake out from Smeargle into that Kartana. Just a Dazzling Gleam here.
Is it enough? No, it's not.
Now what is Kartana going to do on Federico's side of the field? It is that Smart Strike. Is it enough to pick up the knockout on Xerneas?
Oh, it does manage to survive, and the taunt wears off. Oh man, that's so big there, I think, the survival, and that puts Trista actually in a potentially pretty commanding position. Now, it's going to be a really tight finish of the game because Trista doesn't have too much great damage output actually against the Xerneas on the opposing hand, but we've seen that her Xerneas has been able to outspeed consistently. This Kartana looks like it is assault vested, so you know it will just go down to an attack from either Pokemon, but the Xerneas of course can't Geomancy on Federico's end as well, so it's kind of a tricky position where it's like, can Xerneas on Federico's end do enough damage to everything? Because the Dazzling Gleam shouldn't be knocking out the Kartana, a Moonblast might knock it out, but that means Xerneas sticks around for an extra turn, but Trista actually opts to protect the Kartana here, just keeping it around longer because it is the best damage output against the opposing Xerneas. And I think that's a pretty great play there. You know you could get that guaranteed Dazzling Gleam out, knock out the Kartana, get that chip damage, and you prevent a potential Moonblast into your slot.
Yeah, the Federico.
And there's the Moonblast.
Oh, going into that protect on the Kartana, so really good play there from Trista. And yeah, putting herself right back in this game. It looked for a moment like she was really out of it, but you know, she's done so well, and it looks like we're going to see the forfeit from Federico's end, and Trista's just pulled this through, and I'm in a bit of awe here.
Me too. Yeah, that was a really tough game, I think, because from the start, you know, even though she got the Roar off, the Dazzling Gleam just did so much damage to both Tapu Koko and Incineroar, and it seemed like a major disadvantage. And then Federico was playing so well, denying the Xerneas from Geomancy this entire time, but I think it showed how key of an adjustment Incineroar was in this game, right? And both the Tapu Koko and the Xerneas surviving with just a sliver of HP was also so big there for Trista. So the bulk that she's trained on this Pokemon really paying off. And even though she only brought one of her restricted Pokemon, actually both players just opting for Xerneas, not bringing the Kyogre or the Lunala, you could see just how much of this format can revolve around proper Xerneas play. And that was one of the games where even it's like, oh, both players have a lot of similar Pokemon. It felt very skill-based, where even though Trista actually got slightly unlucky, she was able to pull off with the win. And I think the key turn in that second game was the Sky Drop plus the Roar combination. Yeah, Assault Vest Tapu Koko showing how good it can be.
Huge. And if you're Federico now, do you think with that inclusion of Incineroar from Trista's end in that last game that you may consider the Kyogre now? I know you mentioned it after game 1, but I feel like now might be a good time. And then if that is the case, do
you bring the Ludicolo? Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, I mean,
mind games are beginning now,
I love seeing these mind games in best of 3, and I know I hate being on the opposite end because it's so stressful, and that's kind of why I wanted Federico to actually bring the Kyogre the last game, and now it's like because he didn't, and Trista's thinking, oh, Kyogre would be so good for him to bring out. Maybe I just bring the Ludicolo. So that's going to be really key, whether both players opt for the exact same Pokemon, whether they bring in their water types. Of course, the Ludicolo does counter the Kyogre. I think Trista here probably keeps the Lunala on the bench this time around, and I think she realized, okay, that last game was just me winning off Xerneas, but he knows that I have Roar now, he knows that I have Sky Drop, so he's going to play a little bit safer around it. So I'm really glad we got a third game in this set, because I feel like there's so many things in this matchup that kind of build off the previous game. And so the Kyogre and the Ludicolo is the biggest question, but still also just seeing how both players maintain their Xerneas now that they know all the tricks on opposing ends is also going to be exciting.
Yeah, and like you say, if we bring the Ludicolo and the Kyogre doesn't come, it feels like
it's just complete dead weight. Yeah.
We are going to see Federico lead off with Tornadus and Kartana here, and Trista as she brought the lead, but no, it is going to be Tapu Koko and Kartana again, sticking with that lead that she's played the last 2 games.
Yeah, and so the first time around, it's the same lead from that first game. I thought the Tapu Koko was in a really good spot because of the Electro Web potential. Once again, you can just go for a Tailwind on the Kartana as well. One way Federico could potentially get around that is maybe going for a taunt onto the Kartana to stop the Tailwind and then Tailwinding the next turn, so you have the guaranteed speed advantage. Maybe you don't want to play the Tailwind War. The Kartana on Federico's end also can get some pretty consistent damage output, but it's going to have to worry, obviously, about the Electro Web on Tapu Koko. I think Tapu Koko here probably is going to want to Electro Web. Either way, with these leads, we're going to see a lot of positioning and pivoting, Volt switches, switching out, just to, once again, basically set the board up for the Xerneas.
Yeah, and it feels like that's what this game is really, the players are just setting the scene for them to get that position late game to just kind of overcome their opponent, because the team's also similar.
There's the taunt.
Taunt coming out into that Kartana, like you called, Aaron. They're shutting down that potential Tailwind, and Electro Web coming out from Tapu Koko does hit both targets this time, reducing the speed on the Tornadus and Kartana by 1 stage. And we're going to see the Kartana, I believe.
Oh, great call there by Trista.
No Tailwind.
Just
straight for that,
and it just gets the knockout. Wow.
The Kartana, that is huge.
That's so big there for Trista. That was wonderfully played. She made the call, and I was thinking maybe the Kartana could survive on Federico's end, but it just gets the knockout outright after getting that chip damage, and that's so big. I mean, Tornadus now at least can Tailwind, and Kartana obviously can't protect, and I think Federico here probably just goes for a protect on the Xerneas and the Tailwind. I mean, if you're confident you can survive a +1 Leaf Blade plus an Electro Web, maybe you just go for the Geomancy here with Xerneas, but that's a big knockout here. But once again, Xerneas is the pivotal Pokemon in this matchup, so it's not like Federico's out by any chance, but that's the ideal situation. Turn 1, no protect here from Xerneas. This could be a really big turn.
Tailwind from the Tornadus and a Volt Switch from the Tapu Koko, as we're seeing the Tornadus does.
Oh, it gets the knockout.
Picks it up and knocks out the Tornadus, but it has done its job. It's got the Tailwind up. We are going to see that Tapu Koko switch out. I wonder what Trista is going to do to adjust her board position here. Maybe bring in that Incineroar if she's brought it this game.
There it is, yep.
There it is, yeah. But does the Xerneas doesn't go for the Geomancy? We didn't see it protect here. It is going to potentially take a +1 Leaf Blade from this Kartana, which will do good damage.
Oh! Wow, a critical hit. Still surviving though, does get the Geomancy off, but that crit makes that so much more so much harder for Federico to really be able to come back in this one, because it means any amount of damage will knock out the Xerneas at this point. Yeah. So Federico opting for the call because he was probably confident he would survive, for example, something like a Thunderbolt and a Leaf Blade into the Xerneas, and this Tapu Koko was so bulky with the Assault Vest that it probably can't even do very much damage. So nice call to go for the Geomancy. Unfortunate critical hit. We actually do see the Kyogre come out.
The Kyogre coming to the field is going to summon that Drizzle ability, bringing the rain to the field, which boosts water-type attacks and just makes Kyogre so strong in this position. Now, if you are Federico, you've just got your Geomancy booster, but do you kind of want to protect your Xerneas in this situation because of the fake out, but do you protect because you've seen roll? So if you go for that protect, there's potential of the Incineroar going for a roll, and depending on how Federico's Kyogre's built, is it Scarfed? I mean, then it will outspeed.
Yeah.
It's really kind of...
It's tricky. I think the safe play for Trista, maybe you just fake out Xerneas, Leaf Blade, Kyogre, because the Cortana does have that Focus Sash, and so you're guaranteed to survive. You know, you would imagine Federico here surely is going to want to protect, but maybe he fears the double up into Kyogre, and if the Kyogre is Scarfed and we see a double up, actually I think Trista just wins the game, but we don't know what item the Kyogre has. So this turn is going to be really, really big. Federico isn't out by any means, but it's going to come down to where the fake out lands. We do see Xerneas protect here.
Xerneas going for that protect on Federico's side of the field. We're going to see a fake out
into the Kyogre. What a call.
Trista's Incineroar and a Leaf Blade doubling into the Kyogre, and at +2 it's going to pick up the knockout, and a huge play from Trista. Like you said, thinking down, tying up the game. Such a big call there. Such a risky call, but such a good call from Trista's side of the field.
Yeah, I think it's one where if, like, you know, a lot of Kyogres on these team compositions typically will have the Choice Scarf, right? So if you expect the Choice Scarf, then that's it's a pretty free play to make, actually, because Xerneas Dazzling Gleam won't knock out either. You know your Kartana will survive a Moonblast because of that Focus Sash from the Xerneas, right? So the one way that play doesn't work out is if the Kyogre doesn't have the Choice Scarf and it can protect it, because then the Xerneas goes for Dazzling Gleam. But I think